Alexandr Zhuk, glad to have you here in Holland with the National Management and IT Symposium, as it's called. We are here in the Spant in a little village called Bussum, and at the Heineken Square, they call it, as you see, much juice to drink. Can you tell us why you're here in the Netherlands and why you're speaking here on this conference?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and as I am here by invitation of our friends and colleagues from ASL Bizzle Foundation, was happy to come and am enjoying the juice and other amenities here, and I'm looking forward to speaking with more friends and then presenting at my session later today. The reason for coming here, I see a lot of, as was mentioned during the keynote, I see a lot of opportunities for building the knowledge bridges in what my professional association, of which I'm a co-founder and a co-creator, is involved, and what is discussed here. Digital trust, whether it is a concept that's taken separately or something that is understood more holistically as a way to build trust, is directly related to what Business Relationship Management Institute does and what business relationship managers do day in and day out, building bridges, building trust within the organization between the partners of the business and business providers.
Mm-hmm. Can we say that nowadays digital trustworthiness is in a very low level?
You absolutely can say that. In fact, it is so. And one of the reasons I believe boils down to the fact why people don't trust the organization to share their information digitally. And I believe when a deeper look is performed, we might find, not surprisingly, that the trust issues are going back to that same old. I don't trust you, therefore I will not trust you with my digital data. And then reversing that to look at why that happens is, I think, partially the key to the problem.
Mm-hmm. So how can we solve this problem?
Starting with the standard human question of why people do not trust or do trust us, who we are, and what do we do to either encourage and promote that trust or maybe undermine that. And the who we are entails a starting from within the organization to understand how the organizational mission address the issue of trust in general, and how do the organizational party, the actors within the organization, act to enhance that image or, again, undermine that.
Mm-hmm. That sounds very difficult as an organizational problem, but as a consumer, as a little company, you just want to trust another party and not have all this buzz around it.
Well, yes and no. It depends. If we don't trust, that is that. We don't trust. And I agree with you that the problem of trust may not be as easy to solve, especially when we talk about a complex organization. But it also highly depends on the organizational culture. If there is a certain level of transparency within the organization and a certain level of organizational integrity and organizational uniformity, then the entity has a little bit more chance to be trustworthy than the one that does not have those privileges.
Mm-hmm. Let's say the huge companies are like Amazon, Google, Facebook. Is there a difference in trust these big companies in the United States and Europe?
It is difficult for me to compare the trust in Europe being a guest to your conference rather than knowing more about the European issues of trust, but I think that the European legal frameworks are different, and there are certain limitations that American companies are facing here when they do business that have to do with more stringent European privacy laws, for instance. But ultimately, those issues, the way they are addressed from the standpoint of organizational culture and the organizational approach. And that is, given that this is the same organization, whether it's Amazon or Facebook, are done from wherever the organizational culture is promulgated and in a way uniformly addressed from Europe and American perspective.
Mm-hmm. Some weeks ago we heard that we can't trust any longer the Safe Harbor Agreement. We lived on the Safe Harbor Agreement for about nearly 20 years as the most trustworthy agreement between Europe and United States. And now we have to learn that for maybe 15 to 20 years it was in vain.
Well, then we need to reassess what it is the issue, and as with everything, try to rectify and move forward. It is not, it is maybe a point in our collective future, but it is our future, and it is up to us collectively to build and correct if we find any mistakes. Failure is good sometimes. It is a learning opportunity. What we learn from it is how we move forward.
And how about the information services like NSA? Already in '98 I wrote a lot about Echelon. That was already in a huge NSA CIA program to gather all the data from the internet. Now we had the Snowden revelations, which was not really new for me, but what does it mean for our trustworthiness?
For our trustworthiness as the organization or as a society, or as an individual. Everyone has to answer these questions individually. And while there are challenges, and where there are certain challenges in the world that have to do with political background that we live in, and there are certain challenges that are coming out of that. But ultimately it is up to each one of us as an organization and individuals how we answer these questions and how we proceed.
Let's say as a society, will we ever trust organizations like NSA, and will we ever understand why they are gathering data and how much they really need?
I would not give a yes or no answer, because let's not forget that NSA is a government agency that in the United States perform an important function. So within the framework of having NSA to do what it must do, I guess this is a great opportunity, a great learning moment for NSA and the US society as a whole, and the societies that the US lives within, the modern world in general, to understand what it is and what it means to be an organization such as NSA, to live in the world and yet to be able to perform its functions effectively.
If organizations like NSA will be more transparent and explain more what they are doing and why they are doing, is that a possibility to get more trust from us?
That would be one of the ways that I am sure could be attempted by NSA. There are gradients of what an organization such as this can or cannot say in the lieu of being transparent, or on its journey for greater transparency, but that would be definitely one of the things to try.
Do you have examples from organizations who do very well in trust?
Actually, when we talk about organizations that do very well in trust, there are, believe it or not, there are organizations who rate those based on the consumer trust level. And I was, for instance, surprised that many of them are not very well known as large technology companies. Amazon is one of them, actually, but it's probably one of the few highly rated, trustworthy organizations out there. There are some retail organizations like Marks and Spencer in Europe, etc., which are rated very highly on a trust scale, but are not known as digital power horses, etc. So it is going back to the same issue. It probably has to do more with human aspects of how we perceive trust individually as consumers, and then while we run an organization as providers of trust or trustworthiness.
So trust is maybe mainly a matter of image.
It is part of that. Image is our front that we put, but that it's a matter of action that promulgates or undermines trust, no matter what kind of image we project, whether it's shiny or not so shiny, but it is who we are. That's what trust is determined by, not what we say, what we do and what we say.
I hope so. Thank you very much, Mr. Zhuk.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much.